Welcome to a Healthy Push podcast. I'm Shannon Jackson, former anxiety sufferer turned adventure, mom, and anxiety recovery coach. I struggled with anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia for 15 years. And now I help people to push past the stuff that I used to struggle with. Each week, I'll be sharing real and honest conversations along with actionable and practical steps that you can take to help you push past your anxious thoughts, the symptoms, panic, and fears. Welcome. You're right where you're meant to be. All right, I want to talk to you about something that you've probably heard often in your recovery journey, and it's this idea of managing anxiety. And I want to share my candid thoughts and feelings and the knowledge that I have surrounding this topic because people often ask me, Shannon, was there a pivotal point for you in your recovery journey? And I'm always honest and I say I had quite a few, but this one that I'm going to share with you is one that actually caused me to make some really big shifts and some big changes. Like it's a moment that I distinctly remember changing the way that I started moving through my recovery and just through life in general. So over 10 years ago, I walked into a psychiatrist's office and she literally changed my life. And I know that people say this, but I'm not saying this lightly. Like she literally did change my life. And I am so grateful to her. And I will always be so grateful to her because I went to her when I was at one of the lowest points in my recovery journey. Like everything was so hard for me. And this was the first time going to her. This was the first time I'd ever felt like maybe I can't continue doing what I'm doing. Maybe I can't continue getting in my car and driving to work and sitting at work and going to the grocery store. Maybe I can no longer be functional. And for me, that was terrifying because even though I was struggling so severely with panic disorder and panic attacks and agoraphobia, and I had for years, I was always functional. I always did the things. And I always sort of just had that mentality of if I stop doing, things are going to get worse. And so I remember having a conversation with my therapist, and my therapist was like, Shannon, I know that you've tried medication in the past, and I know that it wasn't helpful, but I think maybe this is something that we could revisit. And I even get emotional right now, even speaking this out loud, because I remember what I felt like when I heard her say those words. Because for me, I was always resistant to medication. I always felt like sort of that is the last thing. Like I want to do this on my own. I don't want to have to rely on something. I want to figure this out. I never really had the healthiest mindset surrounding medication, and I wish that I had been a little bit more open to it, like all throughout my recovery journey. But I remember saying, yes, I think it makes sense. I think you're right. And so she sent me to a psychiatrist to talk about going on medication, trying medication. And like I said, this was the second time I had tried it. And the first time was just really hard. It did not help me. I actually felt like it made things worse. And so I was like, I don't want to do this again. But I truly, truly felt like I have to give it a shot. And so I went to the psychiatrist, and I remember sitting there filling out this really long form and just feeling like, I cannot believe I'm here. I cannot believe that I'm doing this. But I sort of felt like some peace because I felt like I need to try it. And I remember finishing filling out this long form, and I handed it to her, and she seemingly like glanced at what I had filled out, this form, and she looked up at me. And she said, Shannon, I can't believe you're still doing all the things that you're doing. I can't believe that you're still working. I can't believe that you're still so functional. And I needed that. And I didn't even know that I needed that. Like I needed that validation of this thing that I'm struggling with is actually really hard. And it makes sense that I was having a really hard time. And her giving me that validation was so helpful because I was always so good at minimizing. I was like, Shannon, this is just anxiety. People struggle with anxiety. Like you're having panic attacks. You've been going through this for years. Like you should be able to figure this out by now. Like what is wrong with you? Like just get it together. And I, of course, would always tell myself those things too, like people deal with worse stuff than this. And all of this messaging obviously was really unhealthy, but I knew right from that moment where she said those words of, I can't believe you're still doing the things. Like, it made me feel just a sense of relief. It made me feel seen. It really made me feel like I'm in the right place. And so we had conversation, right? I was telling her all the things that I was struggling with and how hard things were and my hesitancies about taking medication. And she asked me, why are you hesitant? Like, what about it scares you? And I said, well, one of the things that scares me the most is my first time that I tried taking medication, I really felt like it made things worse. And she said, okay, so you're afraid that if you take medication, you might experience more symptoms and feel worse. And I said, yes, and I cannot handle any worse than I'm already experiencing. Like, what I am living every day is enough, and I cannot take any more. And she said, okay, Shannon, I want to give you another way of looking at this. If you take the medication and if you do feel worse, then you stop taking it. But if you take the medication and you actually find it supportive and helpful, then it's actually going to give you some relief so that you can continue to do the things while working on strengthening the tools in your relationship with anxiety. And I thought, wow, how logical. I've never quite looked at it that way, right? If it does make things worse, I just stop taking it. But of course, my brain never really lived in that logical space. But it was so helpful to hear her say that because it took this pressure off of like, okay, if I do take it and it makes things worse, then I just stop taking it. But she said, I really want you to know if it doesn't work, if it doesn't help, it's not the end all be all. There are so many other things that will help you, and you can do it without medication. And I thought, wow, okay. Like, how freeing is that to look at it from that lens? And long story short, the medication was not helpful. And I probably think it wasn't helpful because I really honestly wasn't super open to it, but I honestly gave it a shot. Like, I was on it for several weeks and I really gave it a go. And I remember going back to her and I just felt like, what the heck am I going to do? Like, I've tried it and I know that you said, like, I can do this without medication, but I have tried everything. Like, you don't understand. I have tried everything and nothing has worked. And I have been doing this for years and I can't do this anymore. And she looked at me and she said, Shannon, I think you trying everything is a big part of the problem. And I was like, what? And she just looked at me so plainly, so bluntly and said, Shannon, fuck managing anxiety. And I was like, okay, wait, what? I was so taken aback, obviously, to hear her curse, but I was just taken aback to hear from a psychiatrist, like, what do you mean? What do you mean I don't have to manage anxiety? And she literally told me, Shannon, you don't have to manage anxiety. And I was so confused because for years, this is what everyone told me to do. Like, you basically have to accept that this is what your relationship with anxiety is going to look like. Like, you are going to struggle with panic and fear, and this stuff is going to continue to show up in your life, and you just have to figure out how to maneuver around it. Like, you have to figure out how to have it be a part of your life while finding ways to manage it and throwing different things at it and throwing coping skills at it. And what she was telling me kind of threw all of that into the garbage. And I was like, okay, well, if I don't have to manage it, then what the heck am I going to do? And she said, that's just it. You're always trying to do. You're always trying to do. And what if you stopped looking for all the solutions? What if you stopped trying to do all the things? What if you actually start allowing recovery to be a possibility. Like actually accepting that maybe anxiety isn't always going to stick around, isn't always going to be a part of your life in the way that it looks right now. Maybe you're not always going to struggle with panic attacks. Maybe you're not always going to have these intense fears. And you need to start to let that be a possibility. And I just thought, wow, that sounds crazy. Like, that sounds crazy because this is what I've been living for so long. And I kind of had just accepted that it was going to be a part of my life forever and that I needed to find solutions and fixes and that I needed to do all the things. And I can't tell you how much relief I felt in having this conversation, but I also felt so much confusion. Like this weight had been lifted. But then, of course, my brain sort of immediately went to then what are you going to do? Like, what does this all look like? And I knew essentially what she was telling me was, Shannon, you have to stop trying to fix. And instead, you have to actually face your feelings. You have to face the fear. You have to face the pain. You need to stop running from these things because you've been trying to run and fix and avoid and not feel for so long, and it's not working. And so all these things that you're doing of trying to throw the breathing techniques at it and all the mindfulness practices and reading all the books and going to therapy all the time and just trying so hard, I truly felt like leaving that office that day, I needed to stop trying so hard. And maybe anxiety wasn't the problem all along. Like maybe it was actually the way that I was responding to anxiety that was the problem, and all the other stuff in my life. Like it wasn't just anxious feelings that I was running from. I was often running from everything, like all the hard stuff. And so I knew I had to start doing a lot more facing. And I couldn't keep running, and I had to actually allow myself to start to feel, and I had to do the hard work. But this conversation opened up that door for me to feel like this is something that actually might, quote, work. This is not like all the other things. She's not telling me all the other things that everyone has told me that I've tried to do for years and years and it hasn't worked. Like she is telling me something different. And she gave me this permission to really stop looking for all the solutions and stop doing all the things and really just to look at the hard stuff and start facing the hard stuff with healthy steps, with compassion, with support. Like what a different way of approaching this, right? And I'm not going to lie, it was scary because I remember leaving and feeling like, okay, I can breathe and I have a sense of direction, but I still don't know what it's all going to look like. Like, I don't know the steps and I don't know, like, if this is, quote, going to work. And I felt like that was part of it too. I had to let go of needing to know the steps. I had to let go, like, of this idea of thinking that I was going to find the fix. And I really, truly, I know when I left that office, I left the idea of managing anxiety there. And it was so freeing because it actually allowed me to step into this belief that I don't have to manage it. I don't have to accept that this is always going to be a part of my life and that this is what it's going to look like for me. I can actually practice creating a healthy relationship with anxiety and with myself. So I created a healthy relationship with anxiety without medication. But I want to really emphasize this because it's so, so important. Medication is just another tool that can support you. There are so many tools that can support you, and medication is just another one that can do it. And it's okay if you are on medication. It doesn't mean that you're always going to have to be, but if you want to be, that's great and that's okay. If it's supportive to you, heck, take the support. Like I would have. I was really at that point of I will try it and I will take it. And if it's helpful, like I will take any support that I can get. But it's also okay if you feel really hesitant like I did, and the idea of trying medication is really scary to you. Like, it is scary, and I get that. And so if you're hesitant, I really just want to encourage you, have a conversation with a qualified professional about it. Like, really talk to someone who can help you navigate what that journey might look like. But if you're hesitant and you're like, oh, I just don't really want to try it, I want you to know there are so many other tools that can and will support you. But I don't want you thinking, I have to find and do all the things. I have to grasp at all the tools. I have to get better at practicing this and that, and I have to do it right. And I have to constantly be focused on creating this healthy relationship with anxiety. Please don't do that to yourself. You know, what I teach my students and my clients, it's often the simple stuff. Like the simple stuff that we're overlooking. We don't want to believe that it's that easy, but sometimes the simple stuff, right, isn't easy. And I know that and I get that, but it's often the simple stuff that really helps us the most. And so, if anything, I really hope that what I've shared with you today helps you to let go of this idea of maybe I don't have to manage anxiety, and maybe it's actually part of the problem. And maybe there is a different way. And maybe medication's part of the picture, maybe it's not, but it doesn't have to be. Recovery is possible without it. But I just want you to know, in everything that I teach, I don't teach you how to manage or cope with anxiety. I don't believe in it. I don't find it helpful. I didn't find it helpful for myself. I don't find it helpful with clients and students. And truly, I teach you how to create a healthy relationship with anxiety and how to overcome it. And I truly believe that panic disorder and agoraphobia aren't things that you need to live with. Like these diagnoses, if you're diagnosed with either of these things right now, they are not lifelong. You do not need to accept that these things are always going to be a part of your journey and of your life. So if anything, I hope that this episode has given you this different perspective of maybe I can accept that overcoming this is actually a possibility. And I don't have to look for all the solutions and do all the things and throw everything at anxiety. And maybe I need to simplify. And so if you're looking for some more support and you're like, Shannon, I don't know. I don't even know where to start. I feel like I've tried all the things. I've done all the things. I don't know what to do. I want you to check out my master classes. I have a master class on overcoming the symptoms and panic attacks. I have one on driving anxiety. And if you're looking for a bit more support, you're like, Shannon, I've tried all the things and I just need some guidance. I need some more support. I want you to check out Panic to Peace. It's my 10-week program. We meet every single week. I teach you so many different insights and knowledge and tips and tools that will help you to overcome anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia. And I'm going to be opening the doors again on this program very soon, in just a couple of weeks. And I would love to support you and see you inside of that program. So there's a link in the show notes if you have interest in any of these things and getting some more information. But until next time, my friend, keep taking healthy action. I hope you enjoyed this episode of A Healthy Push. If you want more, head on over to ahealthypush.com for the show notes and lots more tips, tools, and inspiration that will support your recovery. And if you're hoping for me to cover a certain topic, be sure to join my Instagram community at A Healthy Push and let me know in the comments what you want to hear next.